Good to go.
We good to go then?
Yes.
All right, so I lost my screen for a second. All right, well, good evening, everyone. I know that I think only 2 residents are actually online here at the moment. I know we had some more than that signed up, so they may join us kind of as we go through this, but we're going to get started anyways because it is past 6:30. So by way of some introductions, I just wanted to thank everybody who did take the time to sign on. This is largely going to be a staff-led engagement session. Staff's going to go through a fairly detailed report to provide some background information on the proposed unauthorized area parking bylaw. And then, as the clerk was mentioning just before we went live, there will be an opportunity after that presentation for questions and comments. Before I turn it over to the clerk, we're just going to start as we normally do before a council meeting with the land acknowledgement statement. We'd like to acknowledge that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions, and it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. So with that, I will turn it over to Jennifer Willoughby, who will lead us through the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Mills, and thank you everyone for joining us. If you just give me 1 second here, I will share my screen and we'll get started with the presentation. Okay, just need. All right, tonight's public engagement session will review the proposed unauthorized area parking bylaw, Planning Act regulations related to the provision of parking, and municipal scope of jurisdiction. You will have an opportunity to have your say, provide your input and comments. The information from tonight's session will form part of the staff report that will go before council for their consideration. Tonight's public engagement session is being recorded and will be loaded to the town's YouTube channel and shared on the town's social media platforms for members of the community that were not able to join us this evening. We ask that decorum be maintained and the treatment of every person with dignity, understanding, and respect be followed. On March 11th, staff presented a report to council in response to concerns and complaints regarding parking within front and side yards. Currently, the town's zoning bylaw addresses front and side yard parking, in which it notes it is not permitted. The process of enforcement is issuing a Part 3 automatic summons to court through the provincial offenses system, which may take up to a year to resolve if compliance is not obtained. There are 444 municipalities in Ontario, all of which have zoning bylaws that regulate the use of property which includes front and side yard parking. To provide for effective enforcement, many municipalities have transitioned their front side yard parking from their zoning bylaw to a parking violation. While there are very many municipalities that prohibit front and side yard parking, this slide is a listing of a select few municipalities that currently have enacted an unauthorized area parking bylaw. The Planning Act dictates parking regulations that are to be applied to developments through the subdivision approval process. These parking regulations are noted within the town zoning bylaw. Recent changes to provincial legislation has increased the number of residential units permitted on a lot within a residential zone. However, parking spaces remain at 1 parking space per unit. In response to concerns and complaints regarding parking within front and side yards, a review of options to prohibit parking and implement fines has been completed. The creation of a new parking bylaw infraction to prohibit parking within front and side yards would streamline enforcement processes. It would allow officers to respond in a more efficient manner when complaints are received. Officers would have the ability to issue parking tickets instead of issuing zoning violation notices. The proposed bylaw is an effort to reduce property damage, address safety concerns, and maintain neighborhood aesthetics. The set fine proposed is $100, which is the maximum fine permitted under the Municipal Act for parking contraventions. Essentially, the proposed unauthorized area parking bylaw transitions the offense from the zoning bylaw Part 3 summons to court to a parking violation, which allows bylaw officers to issue a parking ticket. Some impacts of parking on front and side yards. Parking your vehicle where you think is a convenience for you may be a hindrance to emergency services. By parking your vehicle where it's not allowed, you may be the cause of sightline issues for pedestrians or motorized vehicles. When you park outside of the allowable hard surface, you may cause damage to unseen utilities, such as water shutoffs and sewer cleanouts, which may lead to the need for replacement of damaged infrastructure. And so currently the town is experiencing this with several properties in town. We have some water shutoff valves that have been driven over the winter months, and they now need to be replaced. Not only does the front yard look cluttered with vehicles parked on it, but it looks unsightly for the neighborhood. The damage left behind to yards adds to the eyesore of the area, in addition to devaluing properties for resale purposes. Previously, the town's Clean Yards bylaw did not identify damage to front or side yards as a result of motor vehicle parking. At the March 25th meeting of Shelburne Council, Bylaw 14/2024 was enacted to amend the Clean Yards bylaw by inserting into Section 23F, every owner of property shall maintain a clear and clean yard and shall also keep their property free from damage as a result of motor vehicle parking within a front or side yard. This slide provides context to the scope of municipal jurisdiction and where municipalities have the authority to regulate uses on private property. The Municipal Act is one example of provincial legislation that governs the extent of powers and duties, internal organization, and structure of municipalities in Ontario. Municipalities are responsible for property taxes, property standards, zoning, business licenses, and local bylaws. A bylaw is a law made by a local authority, such as a municipality. There are several municipal bylaws that control and regulate private property. This slide is an example of bylaws that relate to private property. These bylaws have short form wordings and set fines that have been approved by the Ministry of Attorney General. Fines and tickets are issued when it has been determined that non-compliance exists. Here are some resources for community members should they want to do their own research on their own behalf. I'd like to note that the online survey is available until 11:59 tonight. If you haven't had a chance to complete the survey, please do so before midnight. And so that concludes the presentation for this evening. Thank you for attending the public engagement session. Please ensure to use the raise hand feature to request to speak. This will avoid everyone talking over top of each other or all at once. When called upon, please state your name and address. Your input is valued and will be utilized in the staff report for council's consideration. So I'll stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other again. And are there any questions? Okay, I've got AR, your hand is raised. If you could unmute yourself.
Yep, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
It's Anita, and it's on Cook Crescent. I'm not going to give my full address because it is recorded. Sorry, I just want to go back to the bylaw that actually states what we can or cannot do with our front lawn. Can you state which bylaw that is? Because I'm actually in the bylaws right now for parking, and I don't actually see anything to do with parking on our lawns.
And so what we're discussing tonight is the proposed bylaw that will, unauthorized area bylaw that will not permit parking in front or side yards. And so currently it's listed under the town's zoning bylaw 38-2007.
The zoning bylaw. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I will pull that up. sorry, what was the number? A zoning bylaw number
38, 2007.
38 in 2007? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more question?
I don't know if you have something else. Okay.
Counselor Wagner has a question.
Yeah, sorry, I said I wouldn't have any, but I do. So I think maybe what we need to reiterate or state is this is currently not allowed through, like you just mentioned, the zoning bylaw. So I think just so people can sort of understand, we're moving from what penalty with regards to non-compliance with the zoning bylaw to the new proposed bylaw. So the new proposed bylaw, obviously the fee could be or is going to be $100, but what is the penalty currently if someone is in sort of non-compliance of this zoning bylaw?
Sure. Thank you for your question. So the current penalty is an automatic Part 3 summons to Provincial Offences Court. And so at that point in time, the person that is committing the offense will have to engage legal counsel to help them through that process. And so the decision and end result is at the discretion of Justice of the Peace.
Okay, so there's no formal warnings or anything of that nature that would sort of take place before the summons to court?
So currently that's what we do at the moment. We give some education and communication and a verbal warning. We have not issued any Part 3 summons as of yet.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure that people kind of understood what is currently sort of the procedure with regards to non-compliance, and then what would be the procedure with non-compliance.
Are there any more questions? Anita?
Yep. So just curiosity. So I did see, obviously I went through the, the presentation there, and I'm just curious because I've been here for 8 years and we've never had an issue with people parking on their parking lot, on their spot, on their lawns. I am on Cook Crescent, and I'm sure that you've heard that that sidewalk that was placed on across our driveways was not supposed to be there. We've brought that to council multiple times. That sidewalk wasn't even supposed to be there. We purchased a home with 2 parking spots on the driveway. We then got a sidewalk that was placed on the driveway, across the driveway, that was not even supposed to be there and planned to be across the street. And so now we were forced to park either on the street or on our lawns. So with that being said, so now understanding that we've been parking on our lawns, damage to our lawn, it's our lawn. We pay for that property. We fix that property. It is ours. We are not disturbing any public property. It's ours. Why exactly then in the last 8 years are we only now finding out that there is a bylaw about this and that we're actually being asked to have some sort of bylaw about this, or additional bylaws or additional restrictions or additional enhancements about whatever we're going to be paying about our property?
And so to go back to where the sidewalk location is, when the developer submitted for subdivision approval, the sidewalk was to be located there. They had requested to locate the sidewalk to the other side.
But that's not an actual.
And council
sorry.
denied that. Sorry, and council denied that request. And so the zoning bylaw is reactive, it's not proactive. So it's based on complaints and it's complaint driven. So we have several complaints that have been received. And this
What are
is
the
an issue.
stats? Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry, I interrupted. I apologize. Go ahead. Sorry, I'll ask after.
So we have several complaints that have been received. And so this is our response in trying to appease some complainants.
Okay. What are the stats on that complaints?
The stats?
Like how many complaints do you get per year?
Specifically related to front yard parking?
Specifically related to front yard parking?
Yes. So far, we've received 25 complaints.
25 on average or throughout?
So you asked for complaints received. So in 1 year, we'll say 2023 calendar year, 25 complaints.
Okay. And compared to other complaints across the city, across the other issues, what's that in relation to how many complaints you guys get per year?
So we do have,
what's the- yeah.
sorry, there was a report that went to council that had a yearly update. I can, give me a second and I can pull that up for you. And it gives a yearly update on, let's see here. So the bylaw enforcement update went to council on February 26th. And in that stats, it noted bylaw enforcement staff responded to over 380 calls for service in 2023. This and 376 occurrences, 197 non-compliance notices issued, and 29 charges laid. So in the chart on page 2 of the report, it notes 50 occurrences for animal control, 6 for public nuisance, 2 zoning, 16 property standards, 161 clean yards, 37 noise, 66 false alarms, and 38 general occurrences.
Okay, but you said 25 and 2 are zoning.
Yes, and
But you
so
said that this falls in zoning.
that's correct. Yep. And so in 2023, sorry, trying to locate where I'm going back here. The majority we issued them through clean yards.
Okay. Majority. Okay. So 2 are zoning. Sorry, you said, did you say percent or did you say 2 total zoning?
Two total.
Okay. So that doesn't, so this falls into, so the parking falls into zoning, right?
Right.
But you got 25 complaints on on parking, which falls under zoning. So only 2 were actioned, is what you're saying.
Correct.
I'm just trying to understand. Okay.
That's correct.
So
So
2 actions. Okay.
the process is to provide education and communication before violations are issued.
Okay. Understood. So, sorry, I'm just trying to get I'm going to pause for a second. I'll let anybody else ask. I'm going to
Okay.
put my hand down. I just want to think about this a little bit.
Okay. I have Cindy. Do you have a question?
Yes. Actually, kind of just with a twofold with that following through, and I just lost it. So I guess, yeah, that's just the follow up of that question there with when you're saying there's 2 that went through. So it's, you initially would have, like right now, the way it stands, without changing anything, the non-compliance is you kind of do an educational thing first, a warning, like if you want to say a warning, and then it goes to that non-compliance, they get the summons to court. Is that correct? Is that how I'm like understanding that? That's what currently it is?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Just out of curiosity then, where, like if there's I guess a pad on the side of the house already, an existing pad, and this bylaw goes through, is that going to be considered an exempt because it's already like a grandfathered in, use those terms, I guess?
No, those that have gone ahead and covered their front yard, that is still a zoning non-compliance, and those will be dealt with as well.
Okay.
And so just to clarify, the 2 zoning occurrences that were noted in the staff report, so those don't necessarily relate to front yard parking. Those are a zoning non-compliance. As I'd noted that we have not issued any Part 3 summons for any front yard parking violations as of yet. What we've done is provided education and communication and in hopes of gaining compliance. We have not taken that step to Part 3 summons.
Sure.
Anita?
Sorry, I'm on the zoning bylaw and I'm fighting this a little harder because what I do with my property really should be my personal decision. I pay for it. I'm in the zoning bylaw, And it says number 65 on page 88, parking area, an open area of land not located on public street, private street, or a lane, which is used for parking for 4 or more motor vehicles, should not be included in any area where motor vehicles are sale or repair, blah, blah, blah. So a parking area is really anything that's not on a public street, private street, or a private lane. That doesn't include my lawn. So where exactly does it say that it's my lawn? Because I'm looking for it and I'm trying to understand where my lawn would impede anything to do with the city. That includes the sewage, the cleaning of the sidewalks, etc. Where exactly does it say that my lawn that I paid for, that I pay property taxes on, that I paid for, is determined by what other people complain about if they don't like what I do on my lawn? Like if I wanted to sit on my lawn in a thong bikini and someone complains about it 25 times, am I going to be told I can't do that? It's my property. So sorry, I'm being a little petty right now, but I'm trying to understand where it says exactly what I do on my personal property.
So noted on the information provided through social media and on our website, staff report that was presented to council on March 11th. That staff report notes the section of the zoning bylaw, section 3.15.6 bracket 2.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that on here. It's not in that order. It's not like there's numbers, but it's not in 3,000 or whatever, 3822. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. It's 4.11.3.2. So there's no 38 on here.
Section 3.
Rolling up. I don't want to hold up anybody else who has questions, so I can keep going through it, but it still doesn't show me that. So I'm in section 3.
Yeah, it is.
4, 3, 5. Nope, I
Section
see
3 is page-
3.26.
Section
I'm in
3
the,
is page 6 of the zoning bylaw.
I'm on 3.26, which is page 33.
Section 3 point, sorry, 3.1. 3.15.6.
Three 3.3. Sorry, I'm going through it. You can continue if anybody else has any questions while I go through this. Sorry.
So 3.15, sorry, 156 is page
Okay, it
20.
says not with
It's
page
page
22. Sorry.
22. Yeah.
Notwithstanding the yard and setback provisions of this bylaw, to the contrary, parking areas shall be permitted in the required yards or in the area between the street line and the required setback, except where a lot in an industrial, commercial, institution, or open space recreation zone contains a parking area that abuts a public street or residential zone. A 3.0 meter planting strip shall be provided in accordance with subsection 3.16. No parking area in a residential zone shall be situated in or whole in part with the precision. Sorry, I'm going to go through and read it. Go ahead.
Subsection 2.
Sorry.
It's subsection 2 there. Yeah. You've got 3.156. That's part 1 and then part 2. Okay, Cindy, sorry, your hand is up.
I've done with, sorry, there you go. Sorry, the question we had, and my husband was just like, let's clarify that. In terms of you said that, in the front parking lot or front lawn, what if it's on the side of the house? Beside like your driveway kind of thing, or well, I guess it is your driveway.
So that's what this unauthorized area parking bylaw will address, is front and side yard.
Okay.
There is an opportunity for residents to widen their driveways. That is also a provision within the zoning bylaw. That application has to come forward to the planning department for approval before widening can occur.
Okay. Thank you.
And Councillor Wagner?
Yes, thanks so much, Jennifer. I was actually just going to sort of mention that about the possibility to widen the driveway. There still is, even with that allowance, there still is a certain amount of percentage of your lot that can't be covered with regards to widening your driveway, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that would be to facilitate proper drainage and snow storage and items of that sort of requirements, as well as you mentioned in the presentation there, just sort of infrastructure that is currently situated in most people's, sometimes depending on the side of their house, obviously, but sometimes on their side yard or in the first. I think what a lot of people sometimes don't recognize is that, under my understanding, is the first about 4 feet of your front lawn, not the boulevard, your actual front lawn actually doesn't belong to you at all, because that's where a lot of the services are run as well, so like water lines and gas lines and hydro. So I don't know, I could be wrong in that, but that's just sort of what I understood, to because if they have to come in and service, there's almost like an easement, I guess, that they can come in and service those areas. But yeah, I'm glad that you sort of mentioned that you can potentially apply for a widening of your driveway if you are under the sort of, if your lot size is can facilitate that.
Yes, correct. Anita, your hand is up.
Sorry. So that makes sense to apply for the widening of the driveway. That's fine. I think that's pretty consistent across everywhere. But it says, in section 3.15.6 part 2, it says, or except in the case of a mutual driveway or where parking areas in a garage or carport. So if you're familiar with the area, we are all shared driveways on Cook Crescent. Pretty much the whole crescent is actually all shared driveways. So how does that not, it says except in that case. So how does this apply to that? Because we can still park on our driveway because it's shared.
That's correct. You can park on your driveway. It's shared.
Sorry, our lawn, sorry. Except in the case of mutual driveways. So we can still park in that area on our lawn. As long as we don't go 0.5 off of the sidewalk.
No, and so you'll note, no parking area shall occupy more than 50% of the area of the yard in which it is situated.
Or except in the case of a mutual driveway where the parking area is in a garage or carport within 0.5 meter of a side or rear lot line, is what it says.
Yeah. And then no parking area shall occupy more than 50% of the area of the yard in which it is situated.
Okay. I don't think a car takes over the whole lawn, so we can technically park on our lawn. Am I wrong?
I'll just refer to the statement I just said. No parking area shall occupy more than 50% of the area of the yard in which it is situated. And so while some are parking on their lawn, it is still not permitted. Okay. Are there any more questions from anyone?
I do have one more question. No, I didn't raise my hand. Okay. Understanding that there is only 25 complaints, and that's probably localized. I'm pretty sure that's not across the entire town of Shelburne. There's probably 1 or 2 people that are complaining. Why is the entire community suffering and having to abide by these? And I understand that you guys say that, yeah, it was declined for the sidewalk. It was actually in the purchase agreement that we all have, and we brought that forward multiple times. This is our property. So why are you determining what we do with our property?
And so what was in the purchase agreement provided to you from the developer, we have no control over if they've communicated incorrect information. so this isn't this is a proposed bylaw. It doesn't mean it's going to be passed by council. It's council's decision whether or not they choose to enact this bylaw. This public meeting is to hear your voice and to hear what you have to say.
Well, then
Yes.
what I have to say is this is my property. I paid the taxes on this property. I paid for this property. And what I choose to do with it should be my decision. So if I want to dig up all the grass and make it look, I don't know, ugly as hell, that's my property. So other people don't get to determine what appeases them or is aesthetically pleasing to other residents. That is the purpose of it being a freehold townhome. It's my lawn. So I hope the town does also consider that, because I'm pretty sure you don't get asked to do whatever you want to do with your town, with your property. It's our property. We pay for it. So if you don't want us to park there, don't want us to park on our driveway, you don't want us to park on the street, and we're consistently focusing on the parking issues, but there are more complaints, because you also said that there were what, 50 other public, how many other 300 and what was it? 380 complaints on the city. What else are you guys fixing? But we're so focused on the parking, and that seems to be a main concern around this particular community, specifically this little like the Cook Crescent area. I'm going to focus on the Cook Crescent area, but there are so many other issues and complaints that come through, and this parking in this neighborhood seems to be a big issue in this particular, for every council meeting. There's always an issue with parking on this area. We've got the bylaws, we keep bringing up the parking on the streets. Now we have parking on our own property, but there's 380 other issues. How are you guys dealing with those issues as opposed to worrying about what we do with our property? Little fired up right now, sorry.
No problem. And so, yes, we're over 380 calls for service. Included in those calls for service were front yard parking complaints. And so
Only
bylaw-
25.
No, I said included in the 380 calls for service were front yard parking complaints. So that is what bylaw is dealing with many, many, many things. And this one we have brought forward in order to provide a more efficient and effective enforcement mechanism. Councillor
Less than
Wagner,
7% though. Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, Councillor Wagner, you unmuted. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say, I mean, this is really difficult, obviously, and it's not an easy decision to have to make. We, Cook Crescent was developed before the current council of the day, and I can completely understand, how challenging it can be. Myself and the mayor have also had conversations with the clerk and the planner and the CAO with regards to trying to find a solution for Cook Crescent. It's not an easy fix. It really isn't. It's really hard because I can 100% understand the need for extra parking. There's, the driveways are smaller in certain cases, and cars are bigger, and there's more children staying at home longer because it's impossible to buy a home. There are more families sharing, individual dwellings because they need to, save money. We're not taking this lightly by any means, but we also have to remember that moving into an urban setting doesn't forego certain rules and regulations and standards that should be set in order to facilitate a community that looks well, functions well, is fair to as many people as possible within that community, and is a place that you want to come home to, right? I mean, I completely understand what you're saying with regards to you pay property taxes, and you should be able to do what you need to do with your property. And I agree, I pay property taxes, I live here as well. But as a ratepayer in this town as well, I also, don't appreciate when I have to come home and my neighbor's property is derelict, right? It looks bad. It puts my property down. It potentially even affects my property, right? With regards to, especially over in Cook Crescent, because unfortunately the lots are so small that sometimes, you know, when the lawns get tore up like that, it affects your neighbor's property as well with regards to mud and dirt and debris and things of that nature. So we have to still have a level of respect for where we live and our neighbors in order to, you know, have a community that functions well. So, you know, this is, it's not easy. And I do understand I'm going to be in this exact same position in 2 years when my daughter turns 16. I don't have a big enough driveway to facilitate her vehicle. So I'm either going to have to figure out what we're going to do about that, or I'm going to have to find parking at one of the lots, or I'm going to have to engage my neighbors and say, hey, you've got an extra spot. Can I rent it from you? I don't know what I'm going to do, to be honest with you, but I have to make sure that, you know, as a counselor, I'm not thinking of only myself. I have to think of the entire community. And, you know, we want to make sure that driving around and when you come home at the end of the day, your community looks presentable and respectful too.
So I just want to tag on to what you're saying, Lindsay, and I understand, and I get that you understand where we're coming from, but you have to understand as well, it's not so much of just the fact that we need to find a place to park. We can figure that out. We've figured it out for the past 8 years. I'm sure we can figure it out. It's the point of, you're telling us what we can do with our property. If I dug out my entire lawn right now and decided I don't even want grass, I'm going to make that whole thing one big flower pot of whatever, and my neighbor doesn't like it, is that what I'm going to have to deal with later? That's the purpose of and that's the reason why I'm bringing this here. What I do with my property, whether it's aesthetically appeasing to you, him, her, whoever, is not your business. It's my business. If I want flowers and that entire lawn needs to be flowers, then I want it to be flowers. So now we're saying, okay, you can't park there because it may be mud tracks and tire tracks. But then when does that end? Now you're going to tell me I can't put flowers and cover that entire lawn with flowers? Is that what you're going to tell me next? That's my point. It's my lawn. If I want to park there, if I make mud tracks on my lawn, I can fix that no problem every single summer, because we're allowed to park on the street in the summer. But in the wintertime, we're not allowed to park on the street. We're not allowed to park anywhere else. If we can't fit in our driveway, then sucks to suck. We can't park there either. I don't know, sell the car. I don't know, let it get towed. Who knows what happens with it? So we're parking on our streets, and I can guarantee you, and I'm speaking for at least most, I hope, well, I shouldn't speak for Cook Crescent, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close to my peers on my street, is that we park on our lawn only because in the wintertime we cannot park anywhere else. In the summertime, we park on the street and we all maintain our lawns. So that this policy or this bylaw is being enacted for other groups and other areas where the residents of Cook Crescent are pretty good at dealing with what we deal with and how we manage our lawns and our property, it seems really unfair. And I've also paid for my property. And yeah, I'm going to vent a little bit. It is my property. I did pay for it, and what I want to do with it and how I want to treat it and how I want to deal with it, as long as it's not garbage ridden, understandable. I myself wouldn't want to see trash and whatever all over my neighbor's lawn and my lawn. It does bring our values down. I understand that. But track marks, I think, or the parking just in the wintertime and the impacts of that in the summer when we have to fix it, which we all do very well, take care of our lawns. I think that's where we kind of draw the line of when you're telling me what I can and cannot do with my property. So if I was to dig out my entire lawn right now and put the ugliest flowers you could possibly find, are you guys going to come back to me next year and have another issue because someone's complained about the ugliest flowers on the block? This is the problem with this type of bylaw and this type of situation of where you're telling us what we can or cannot do with our property. So that's my spiel. I don't know if anyone else agrees, and if they do or they don't, whatever, but within the bylaw of you telling me what I can and cannot do with my property and the parking on my property, that's where I draw the line. Is no, you don't get to tell me what to do with my property. It is my property. I will fix it. If there are track marks, I'm not impeding the sidewalk. I'm not impeding the sewage. I am not impeding the boulevard. I am literally parking on my driveway or on my lawn in the middle of the winter because we cannot park anywhere else and there is nowhere else for me to put it. And every summer, especially now that the weather's getting better, I will fix my lawn and I will keep it refreshed and looking great and aesthetically pleasing to the rest of the community. But it is my lawn, and what I choose to do with it should be my prerogative. So that's how I feel about that. And if the city disagrees and you choose to enact your bylaw, hey, whatever. We don't really have much of a voice with that, but that is exactly how it feels when you're telling me what I can or cannot do with my lawn. It is my lawn. So if I dig it all out, are you guys gonna have a problem next year? What are you gonna do?
I see Cindy's hand is raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually say, exactly, I can see where you're coming from and in terms of both sides, and there, since this is a place, an opportunity to give us our chance to have a voice, hearing the fact that, yeah, you do hear and you do understand that there's, tight parking spots and stuff. I guess the idea that there has to be some sort of compromise for both sides. Because obviously, yes, we are aware that, with the economy, there's more people living at home, the housing, infrastructure that we're going to be adding more into Shelburne is going to have less parking. The cars are getting bigger. There's more cars in a family. Something has to be, and it has to be maybe even a new way of thinking in terms of our ways of thinking in terms of home ownership and stuff is, like this stuff has to be considered. Yeah, we don't want to have properties where they're garbage ridden or unkept and stuff like that. But again, if and I like the comment about putting in gardens, like if you do, and that's another mentality too, is there are people out there now that are like, okay, we've got to have gardens, get rid of this grass, and some of them can be look, honestly, in my mind, I don't like the look of them, right? But they are better for the environment. So having more people living in one house is potentially even better for the environment. So if we want to start thinking, I don't have the words. I'm not good with communicating, but yeah, like better for the environment, and better just to make everybody sort of happy and wanting to be in a community. I think there has to be a compromise on both sides. Like obviously, it can't be just one and the other. There has to be a balance, obviously, and the fact that you guys have provided our an opportunity to have people do a survey, to have their say and have it come out tonight and have their say, I think that's great, and I appreciate that. For one, I wanted to say that, but it sucks because not everybody's in these tight little communities, or like I'll go with Cook's Crescent. Like some of the town has bigger properties and stuff, so you kind of have to also play fair to everybody. I guess that's another aspect too, right? I'd like to make sure that the council does hear that, and the fact that there does need to be a balance, and just say, okay, you know what, there's this is the new way of living. Like, there's going to be multiple people in a house with small parking, no parking really in these properties, and we as a community have to figure out what we're going to do. And if that means the front lawns become all parking lots, then maybe that's the solution. And I'm going to kind of use Toronto, like, and you drive down some of those Toronto streets, and that's all it is their front lawns are parking. Yeah, it sucks, and yeah, it looks awful, but it's the new reality, and it's better than building these massive big homes. Maybe, like, I don't know, maybe it isn't, but like at least they're affordable, right? In some cases.
Yeah.
I'm going to take on to what you're saying, if that's okay, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
No, I'm going to take on to what you're saying, because I agree with you. Yes, there has to be a balance. I do have a garden. I also park on my lawn, and I don't park on my garden. And sometimes if I have to, I will park on my garden to make sure the sidewalk gets cleared. But I will fix my lawn. So I do have a couple of tread marks, and I fix it every single year, and my garden is still flourishing. So, you're asking me to not park there and not do what I need to do, and then get ticketed on the street, or sell my car and not go to work. So which would you prefer as a city? Which would you prefer? So, you can have both. We still fix our lawn on Cook Crescent. I'm only, again, speaking for Cook Crescent, so a little biased here, but I agree with what you're saying. There has to be a balance. It can't be everywhere.
We definitely appreciate, when homeowners do take that initiative to say, okay, if there is some damage, I'm going to take care of it. I live here. I respect where I live. I want my area to look, respectful and because that reflects upon me. And I completely agree. I've asked Jennifer, I've asked a lot of questions this week with regards to how we can create some sort of a balance. And it's tricky because, like you said, Cindy, there are lots that are wider in this town, which will facilitate, an approval to widen their driveways. And there are a lot of lots that won't. And that's where I'm struggling right now, because I'm finding it very challenging to find this happy balance between, the two. And I completely agree with you. Environment is definitely, part of the issue here too. And that's where my mind also goes, because if we are parking on our lawns in the winter, and we are, we don't have a vehicle that maybe is 100% awesome and it's leaking oil or it's leaking antifreeze or, something of that nature. And, you may or may not notice it, but then it goes into the snow, and then that gets absorbed into the lawn, and then that goes eventually into our water table. So, there's that
would
aspect. I'm thinking, please hold on. That
sorry.
aspect is something else that I also have to take into, consideration. Right. And, then there's the fact that I completely agree with you. When you go to Toronto, there's a lot of, we call it the concrete jungle for a reason. Unfortunately, though, Mayor Chow has now also brought forward a rain tax, right? And people say this is ridiculous. Now we're getting taxed because it's raining out. So, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Believe me, I'm done with being taxed. But this is just information. I'm giving out information. It doesn't mean I agree with anything. It's just, this is the information. This is the facts. So with regards to something like that, when you don't have proper drainage, or you don't have the ability to drain, so we, again, because I asked, believe me, can we just, change the numbers so that we can have wider driveways? And if there's no lawn, there's no lawn. But what that doesn't allow is drainage. And so what happens is, when it does rain, we get an excessive volume of water going into our sewer systems, which then go to our sewage treatment plant. So then we now see a higher volume at the sewage treatment plant. So with regards to this rain tax that she's brought in, it helps to cover the increased volume at the sewage treatment plants that they're seeing in Toronto, which is then causing the facility in itself to work harder, and that means things break down faster, and so on and so forth, right? So there's always a potential reason for things. Not that I always agree with them. I'm telling you right now, I'm done with being taxed. But this is just another part of what I've asked and information I've received that I have to sort of bowl over in my mind to make the proper decision, right, on moving forward. So it's important to get that information out into the community. You may not like it. I don't always like the facts either, but it's just information and it's facts. So, as much as I would say, yeah, sure, get rid of our lawns, it does have, every action has a reaction, right? So whether it's positive or negative, it's part of the process of trying to figure out what is the best solution for this problem, because it's an issue, and I 100% understand.
And maybe just like, even as a, possible ideas, and again, I'm not sure if people thought of this, but it's as like, if you're able to park in the winter on your lawn, as long as you're maintaining your property in the summer where it makes it look nice, that's that balance, where it's like, okay, and yes, I do understand that idea of if there's anything draining on it, but into the ground and stuff, that's bad, obviously. But you'd have to, like, maybe that's where you put the bylaws in of saying, okay, if it's doing things like that, that's where we enforce it. But if it's a situation where, yeah, they're keeping their lawns clean and, presentable in the summer, nobody's out in the winter necessarily to see, to be an issue, right? Like, especially since it is, you can't park on the streets in the winter. I mean, it gives them that opportunity to have, I want to say, the best of both worlds, and then it, has that, the other side gets that opportunity to say, okay, well, at least the properties are still looking nice in the nice weather, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's just an idea.
Definitely. Thank you.
Anita, go ahead.
Yeah, so just going back to your comment about the leaking cars and all that fun stuff. Understood. That happens on our driveway as well. So that goes right into the drain and the sewage when that gets washed down. So whether it goes into the grass or into the sewer, which is actually right at the front of my property, I can take a picture and send it to you. If my car is leaking, it's going to leak right into the drain anyway. So really, what are we protecting? Because it's going to go wherever it's going to go when it's going to go there. So that, to me, and that's where we kind of disagree. Where if your car is not properly maintained, hey, you're going to leak wherever you're going to leak. Sounds gross, but that's the truth. So whether I'm leaking on my lawn or on my driveway, it's going right into the sewer regardless.
Yeah.
So I dispute that
I-
point of, you know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm not trying to be antagonistic
no.
to it.
And
Lindsay,
I
at all.
completely,
Yeah.
I completely understand what you mean there. And I'm not saying this for argument's sake, because I don't want you to feel like I'm
Yeah.
sort of arguing back with you. It's just the only thing I would say sort of to that, and I totally understand, I completely agree. When it does say travel into the sewage in front of your house, I have one in front of my house too, it does travel to the treatment plant. So it will be processed, right? Before actually.
And no matter
that
where it goes,
waters-
right? Like
Yeah,
whether it's in the
yeah.
lawn or on the driveway, it's gonna go there. There's nothing we can do about that. But
Yeah.
And we are like, I will take a picture. I can send it to you all, everybody on this call, and put it on. I can do a live video right now of what Cook Crescent looks like. And yes, some of us have track marks. We all fix it every single year. So I'm being biased. I understand, and you all probably think I'm being biased. And I am
No,
fighting
no.
for my street, because the same way we all fought together about this sidewalk, which I don't care. I'm going to keep bringing it up every time I come up here. It wasn't supposed to be there, and we never planned for it to be there. Otherwise, I would have never even bought this house. But regardless, it's there. We've made amends. We weren't allowed to park on the boulevard. We followed your guidance, and we did what you asked, and we stopped parking on there. We parked on our lawns. We parked wherever we could. We cleared our driveways. We did everything. We keep accommodating the city and the town and these requests, and we are the only ones that continuously are impacted because this sidewalk was placed in a place that was not supposed to be there. Regardless of what they sent to you guys, it's not what we all purchased, and you guys didn't acknowledge what we said, and now we are the only ones feeling the impact. So understanding there are other towns and other little communities where their lawns are derelict and I don't know what the heck is going on there, and I get it. I would not want to live beside someone who has garbage and crap on their lawn. In fact, I hate when cigarette butts fall on my lawn, and I am a smoker. So I understand. But we keep accommodating the town, and the town isn't accommodating us. We talked about in a couple of years prior, we talked about making more parking for us. That never happened. We talked about potentially moving the sidewalk. That never happened. So there are all these promises of all of these things to help us be a community, and we are a good community. We are a strong community, and yet you keep hitting us with random things that don't make sense. What are we supposed to do? Should we all just sell? Is that what you guys want? Is that what the town wants? All of us to just say, well, we can't afford to live here because we have cars, we have kids, we have families, we have multiple jobs. Some of us work in the city in Toronto. We have to commute, and we can't park on our own lawn that we bust our ass to pay for. I'm sorry. I swore. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. That we bust our behinds to pay for. And now we're being told we can't even park on our own lawn, understanding that, yes, you guys already have a law. Now you're trying to impose infractions on us to park there. What do we do? Do you want us to move? It's our lawn. We take care of it, and we manage it appropriately. We do not have garbage on this street. We have a ton of kids on this street. We take very good care of our community, and because of other sub communities, we're being impacted the most. So what do we do? How do we find that balance for us? So should we all just pack up and move? Should I just send the notice to my entire street and say, hey guys, we gotta go, sorry?
No, I understand, and I know it's very, very frustrating. It was frustrating when I, engaged town staff to try and come up with a solution for Cook Crescent, and it was red flag after red flag. It just nothing seemed to work, and everything was always just, it was going to cost so much money, and so I understand it is very frustrating, and nothing could be more frustrating either than being told that, you know, in your purchase agreement or whatnot, that you're not going to have a sidewalk, and then you do have a sidewalk. And, you know, the unfortunate thing about that is, as, you know, Jennifer mentioned, under the town's understanding is, and how everything worked, that sidewalk was always going to be there. And so it must be so frustrating. And I can't even, I can only empathize with that when you're like, but I was told I wasn't going to have a sidewalk here. So, you know, I think sometimes within the general understanding within the residents of Cook Crescent is that that's the town's fault. And unfortunately, it's not. I don't want to say that because I wasn't part of council at that time, and I don't like to speak for the developers, but obviously developers like to tell you what they need to tell you, so you buy the house. And, you know, I can only imagine how frustrating it must have been when that happened. And I know that the town did try to do some issues back then. They did go not really to court, but you know, they did do some legal things with regards to Cook Crescent, and they lost. It didn't work. So unfortunately, that was town you know, tax dollars that was used in order to try and fight the developer with regards to certain things in Cook's Crescent, and it didn't work out anyways, due to provincial regulations and you know, that sort of aspect as well. So I'm not saying this to accuse or anything else.
No, understood.
Do you use your garage? Like, do you have a garage?
I do use my garage. I
Okay.
I do park in my garage. Occasionally when I have guests, especially in the winter, they cannot park on the street. So if I have my sister or my nieces come over for Christmas and the holidays, they can't park on the street. So we
Right,
use my
of
lawn.
course.
Okay.
Of course.
And I understand. I understand the fight and the battle, and I understand it's a lost cause with the sidewalk, though I'd like to
Yeah.
vent about it because I don't care. I will vent about it until the day I move, maybe the day I die. I don't care. That sidewalk was supposed to be there. But 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 the point is that, you know, because the entire, I think here's what I'm trying to get at. The entire town, I understand the law. You know, if you have garbage on your lawn and you're not maintaining your lawn and you're bringing your entire town down, I'm 100% on side with that. Okay,
Yeah.
I am. But what I would say is, considering the experience of the people on Cook Crescent overall, and I've been here for going on 9 years now, considering our experience and the things that we've had to deal with, yes, you are not responsible. The city is not responsible for the town, the developers that came in here and, you know, hoodwinked us and did what they did. Whatever. We can't argue that. That's not your responsibility. But perhaps a potential leniency and exception to the experience that we have to undertake. There's nothing we can do. We can't just pick up and move. If we could just pick up and move, I would be out. I wouldn't be here. But understanding that we don't always have that option, and to impose $100 anytime that someone decides that they want to be in a mood. And I'll be honest, our community is pretty good. There's a couple of complaints, I'll be honest, I know, but of other things, not that. But generally speaking, the parking in this particular community is not an issue. I can guarantee you, if you were to go through every single one of those 25 complaints of the last year, so 2023, I guarantee you none of them were Cook Crescent. I can almost guarantee you that none of those were Cook Crescent, because of the community that we have and the experiences that we've shared. And it's just unfair that the other neighborhoods surrounding us are experiencing similar problems, similar issues, or have, unfortunately, not so nice neighbors, whatever the case is. But we all take very good care of our community, and it's not fair that we're being punished, and it is punishment. We are being punished because everything you've asked us to do over the last 8 years, we've done and acquiesced your requests, and now you're telling us, hey, sell your freaking car, basically. So yeah, a little frustrated, and it does feel a little bit like the town is kind of coming down on this particular neighborhood. It does feel that way because we continuously are the only ones feeling the impact of all of these laws. You can't park on the street, you can't park on the boulevard, you can't park across your driveway. Now you can't park on your lawn. What's next? So that's how it feels. And I vented quite a bit on this call, but I'm hoping that the town can consider that this particular crescent here, we've experienced way more than most of the town of Shelburne. We are trying to appease everything you guys come with, but it really is starting to feel like at this point we're being pushed out of the community because we are not able to park on our driveway that we were promised when we purchased, and it just doesn't feel right that now we're being told because someone else has an issue with their lawn and their property value and whatever, that we are no longer allowed to do this, and we fix it and we've maintained it, and you can come around and take a picture. We fix it all the time. So, you know, it just feels unfortunate that we are the victims of, and yeah, I say victims, we are the victims of something that is bigger than us, and it doesn't really impact our community. We take care of it, and we are doing everything we can. I'm repeating myself now. We would do everything we can to keep our community neat, and yet still we are just always under attack. So that's my last 2 cents. You won't hear from me again, but that is how it feels.
No problem, no problem. I appreciate you coming. I mean, we had this posted for a while, and I chatted back and forth with some people on Facebook when the concerns were made. Again, just providing information. You know, I don't always, you know, have a set one side or the other. When I'm sort of replying on Facebook, I just try and give information because, you know, again, even some of the information I don't like, but it's the information and it needs to be told. So I appreciate you taking the time to come here because clearly nobody else did. And that's it's a little upsetting because I was really hoping to hear from some more people and more ideas and, you know.
I share the same sentiments. I was like, where are
Yeah.
you guys? I can't fight the battle alone, but
Exactly. I said that too. I said, we need the voices in order to hear, you know, from both sides, because currently right now, you know, with, you know, the 25 complaints, we're only hearing the people who are complaining, and we need the other side of this. And, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come and, you know, let us know how you feel and, you know, offering, like Cindy, offering suggestions and some ideas, because I have some, but I don't have them all, right? So it's always good when I can come to council with your voice and say, listen, this is what I've been sort of suggested to. Can we do this? Like, what is the information surrounding, you know, option A, B, and C, right? So, so I hope that, you know, you're feeling maybe a little bit like your voice has been heard today, because, you know, I've been taking notes, and I'm here obviously listening and trying to, you know, take everything in, and, you know, again, I appreciate you coming and, you know, being that voice for the community and yourself.
One thing that
and oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one thing I can add then is, in terms of another idea, is can you also think about, you know, potentially grandfathering, like if things are already in existence, you know, if you know, pass this new bylaw, it's like, you know, and again, you know, coming up with different ideas, it's, you know, you have to maintain the property, you know, but again, it's also whatever is existence is already there, you know, it stays the way it is, you know, as another suggestion as well. I'm hoping that you would consider that as well.
For sure.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Just to having our voice being heard.
Now leave Cook Crescent alone, man. Sorry, that was leave us alone.
Believe me, I have tried. And I'm still trying. I'm still thinking of things. So I know.
Exempt us.
I know.
Can we
it's
be
not easy.
exempt?
Yeah,
Can we
I
be
know
exempt?
it's not easy.
Exempt, grandfathered, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exempt grandfathered. Like we do not keep garbage. I can guarantee you, because our community would go ape shit over garbage on the lawn. We do community cleanups. So perhaps consider leaving Cook Crescent as an exempt community because of, you know, our experiences and what we've done and how we treat our community. If you know, if there are complaints about garbage and truly, you know, again, disgusting behavior on the street, absolutely. But I mean, what can we do? What do we do? So thank you, Cindy, for supporting us on Cook Crescent.
All right, well, thank you for logging in. Thank you for participating. We appreciate your input and your comments, and we'll take those into consideration within the staff report that goes back to council. I don't have a firm date as to when that report will go to council, but if you'd like, I can, once the agenda goes live with that report on it, I can send a copy to you.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
All right, okay. So thank you, everyone. Have a good evening, and thank you again.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.